All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Sabrina Tabaracci,
My name is Daniel Peña.
My name is Soto.
and we are doing our research study on COVID-19 effects on physical activity, behaviors, and nutritional habits in the kinesiology student population. To start things off, we just want to give some background information on COVID-19 and physical activity and nutritional habits. So overall, there have been changes in weight loss and gain, as well as dietary habits since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. There's also been a difference in lifestyle and eating habit changes when comparing the COVID-19 pandemic, like pre and during, as well as during this COVID-19 pandemic. The results in dietary habits and weight changes have been affected drastically. Um, those that are already overweight or obese did not pertain to the majority of the modifications recorded. However, it was stated that those that were considered underweight before COVID-19 have recorded even more weight loss.
So to continue, within the participants who were categorized in moderate and high levels of exercise, it was shown that they were still engaging in regular physical activity despite of the restrictions that were implemented because of COVID-19. Next, overall limitations due to COVID-19 affected physical activity levels, whereas it drastically decreased in the moderate and high level participants when comparing in pre-COVID-19 and during COVID-19 aspects. People in the high active group had more time to exercise in comparison uh, before COVID-19 in comparison to during COVID-19.
So, an international online survey observed a decrease in physical activity and increase in food consumption when implementing COVID restrictions. And then lesser 2020 categorized individuals as inactive if they got less than 149 minutes of moderate activity per week, and then also as active if they performed greater than 150. And from their study, they found that 40% of inactive individuals became less active, while only 22% of active individuals became less active with stay-at-home restrictions. So the population that we looked at had a total of 89 kinesiology students, and also some that were not kinesiology students, but who were enrolled in the following classes: Kin 250, Kin 251, Kin 255, Kin 331, Kin 355, and Kin 384.
As for the methods, we prepared a survey with a variety of questions asking how the participants' physical activity patterns and their nutritional habits changed before and during the COVID-19 pandemic. The survey contained approximately 43 questions. Some of them were comparing pre-COVID-19 habits and habits during the COVID-19 pandemic, perceptions of staying motivated with exercise and nutrition during the COVID-19 pandemic, and lastly, how socio-cultural environments during the COVID-19 pandemic affected physical activity patterns and nutritional habits. From the results section, specifically into the physical activity, participants reported a significant decrease in days per week spent performing moderate physical activity after COVID restrictions, in which the t-test came out to 0.0086. Participants reported a slight decrease in days per week spent performing vigorous physical activity after COVID-19 restrictions. And in this, we did not find a significant decrease, which came out to 0.69. Participants reported a slight decrease in overall days spent exercising per week after COVID-19 restrictions. This also did not have a significant decrease, which came out to 0.50. 36% of participants who had access to an indoor space gym for physical activity before COVID-19, lost access after COVID-19 restrictions. Lastly, COVID-19 restrictions led to a 41% increase in physical activity participation virtually online among participants. As you can see through the graphs here, the before COVID and after COVID. As you can see in this graph as well, the perceived fitness level has decreased in comparison from before COVID restrictions as to after COVID restrictions.
Next, regarding the motivation. So with increased motivation, 25% of participants agree that a new activity / hobby helped to increase their motivation to exercise during the COVID restrictions. And 26.5% of participants somewhat agreed, and 20.6% agree that they found motivation by purchasing new equipment. 22% of participants agree, and 25% somewhat agree that they feel more motivated to exercise outdoors now after the restrictions. And then as far as decreased motivation, so 44.8% strongly agree, and 37.3% agree that fear of getting COVID and giving it to a friend, relative, family member led to decreased motivation to return to their gym after the COVID restrictions were lifted. And so 32.8% of participants strongly agree, and 31.4% agreed that the fear of getting COVID themselves led to decreased motivation to returning to their gym after the restrictions were lifted. And then 22.3% of participants strongly agree, and 28.4% agreed that the closure of their local gym led to decreased motivation to exercise.
Up next, we'll explain our results for the nutrition aspect. So participants reported a slight increase in their days per week they were spending grocery shopping after the COVID-19 restrictions. So there really wasn't a significant increase. It was just 0.45. 25% of the participants agree, and 25% of the participants somewhat agree that after COVID restrictions increased motivation to cook at-home meals. 41.2% of the participants reported an increase in appetite, while 39.7% reported no change in appetite with COVID restrictions. Next, 66.2% of participants reported an increase in snacking, while 27.9% reported no change in snacking. 52.9% of participants recorded a decrease in eating out, while the following 29.4% reported an increase in eating out with COVID restrictions. 51.4% of the participants reported an increase in weight, while 35.2% reported no change in weight with COVID restrictions. Our following discussion points were that participants reported a slight decrease in frequency of exercise per week. However, they also reported a slight decrease in vigorous activity and a significant decrease in moderate activity. Participants that were exercising less often, but they also chose to perform more vigorous activity as opposed to moderate activity. And participants reported an increase in outdoor physical activity and virtual or online activity as a response to COVID restrictions. Perceived fitness level has declined with COVID restrictions as well, while participants reported a slight increase in days spent grocery shopping. Participants also reported an increased motivation to cook at-home meals, while a decreased motivation to eat out. Participants are also eating more home-cooked meals, but they have noticed an increase in appetite and as well as an increase of snacking, while majority of participants have noticed an increase in weight during the COVID restrictions. Finally, overall, in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic, all these individuals basically need to make sure that they're doing their part to ensure their overall health, whether that's mentally or physically. Half the reason why we did all of this was to include in the study that making sure people are keeping up with their healthy nutritional habits, as well as making sure that they keep up with their positive physical activity patterns. And we kind of chose the kinesiology community at San Francisco State because all of these individuals consist of active individuals who have maintained motivation to exercise and have noticed motivation to cook healthy meals and find other means of exercise in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, which ultimately leads us into our limitations of this survey. We propose that if a different population was used rather than a group of kinesiology students, then results may have been different as well. And that concludes our project. Listed in the following slides below are our references. Thank you.